we just had your test over David Brainerd, William Penn, Benjamin Franklin, and, oh my gracious, my mind went blank. Who was the other one?
Paul Revere.
Paul Revere. On Friday, so it's now time to start a new chapter.
Patrick Henry.
But we're also going to move on from the northeast states to the
Southeast states.
Right? So that means I've turned around the northeast states, and we're going to try to say them without seeing the names of them, and then we'll be doing the southeast states. So where do your eyes need to be when we're doing the maps?
On the chart.
So sit up, please. Pencils should be down. I don't even need pencils out. All right, let's see if you can do it.
Maine, New Hampshire, Vermont, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, Connecticut, New York, Pennsylvania, New York.
This is New York, guys. New York has this little piece that comes out here. This is New York. Maine, New Hampshire, Vermont, and New York, which goes beside Massachusetts also, and Connecticut also. Okay? New York. This one is
Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Delaware, Maryland.
We're going to do it again because I got some people over here that weren't even looking. This will be on a test, and probably on quizzes too. Both quizzes and tests. Maybe even on the very next quiz or test. So you have to pay attention and learn them.
Maine, New Hampshire, Vermont, New York.
What is this?
New York.
Okay, it sounded like some of you were saying something else.
Massachusetts, Rhode Island, Connecticut, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Delaware, Maryland.
Very good. All right, now we're going to also go on with the southeast region, okay? So since this one right here is Maryland, you see that?
Yeah.
So we're going to go on right beside it. This one is?
West Virginia, Kentucky, North Carolina,
North Carolina,
South Carolina, Georgia, Florida, Alabama, Mississippi, Arkansas, Louisiana, Tennessee, and Kentucky.
All right, maybe we need to get a pattern going on this one, okay? All right, so we're going to go West
Virginia, North Carolina, South Carolina,
And we're going to do these three in a row.
Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia.
So that spells mag. Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia. Everybody knows this one is
Florida.
You should be able to recognize it by its unique shape and the fact that it's a tourist destination. Yes, and it is a peninsula. And then we're going to go Louisiana, Arkansas. All right, so going up. You're making the note go higher. Louisiana, Arkansas. L.A. for La. Louisiana, Arkansas. All right, and these are the states that get hit by a hurricane a lot of times. Okay, because hurricanes will come up through the Gulf, and that's where my parents live, in this area right here, Pensacola, and they got hit by a hurricane, and then this area got hit by another hurricane. Okay. All right, now let's start on page 91 in our books. We're going to read about Patrick Henry. He actually has been mentioned in the Liberty Kids videos in the past. Okay. Patrick Henry, the student. You need to get your attention to your book now. Come on. Put the marker up. We're going to start reading. There we go. Patrick Henry, the student. 8-year-old Patrick Henry carried his fishing pole through the woods on his father's farm. He planned to catch some fish for lunch. Patrick was glad there was no school today. How I wish I could learn at home instead of going to school, he thought. I could study more things. I would be able to do chores between lessons, and I could go fishing more often. He laughed out loud as he thought of what his father might say to that idea. Turn the page. His father, John Henry, had gone to college. Patrick knew how important education was to him. Patrick studied at the local school until he was 10 years old. At that time, Patrick got his wish. His father decided to teach him at home in subjects such as arithmetic and history. He also learned how to read Latin and Greek. Those are two languages. Finding the right job. As a young man, Patrick worked at several jobs before he finally found the right one. He and his brother opened and operated a store together, but they did not manage it well and later had to close the store. When Patrick Henry was 18, he married Sarah Shelton. His father gave them a farm, but the crops failed and their home was destroyed by fire in 1757. Farming was not the job for Patrick. Finally, in 1760, Patrick Henry became a lawyer. He seemed to understand people. He seemed to understand people and was able to speak and argue his cases well. He liked helping the ordinary people in his town. His law business became very successful. All right, before we do the next page, let's look at the important words. First one is lawyer. A person whose job is to give help to others with laws and to speak for them in court before a judge. And now the important names. Patrick Henry, a leader of the American Revolution who spoke out against the British. King George III, King of England from 1760 to 1820. So this would be the king that they keep talking about in the videos. Little kids, the king who was the King of England when we were fighting England to get our freedom. And then last of all, Bill of Rights, the first 10 amendments, additions. So that means that after they wrote the Constitution, then they decided already they needed to make some changes. So the Bill of Rights is some additions. They added some things to it. So the first 10 amendments or additions to the United States Constitution. All right, we do have one more page to read. And then I forgot to tell you about the different states here, so we're going to go back and do that. Speaking for Virginia. At this time, the Virginia colony was controlled by England. This meant that the people of Virginia had to do what England told them, whether they agreed or not. In 1765, England's King George III made a law called the Stamp Act. This law forced the people of Virginia and other colonies to pay for a stamp to be put on important papers. Patrick Henry disagreed with the Stamp Act. He was a member of the House of Burgesses, which made laws for Virginia. He gave reasons why the colonies should make their own laws. Many people agreed with him. For the next 10 years, King George III continued to demand high taxes from Virginia and the other colonies. In September 1774, the colonies sent men to meet in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Patrick Henry was one of the men from Virginia. As these men met together, they began to see themselves as being from one new country instead of several colonies. I am not a Virginian, but an American, he declared. It was time for the colonies to separate from England. All right, and that's where we'll stop the reading, but let's go back again and look at the states, the new states that we're learning. We're going to talk about some facts about each state. All right, so we're going to start with Kentucky. And the fun fact about Kentucky, Kentucky is the home of two sisters who wrote the song Happy Birthday to You way back in 1893. That song is pretty old, isn't it? All right, then let's move on to West Virginia. West Virginia was the first state to observe Mother's Day in 1908. All right, so Mother's Day was observed there first. Now Virginia is known as the birthplace of our nation. Okay, and so that's because a lot of the people and things took place there in Virginia as far as getting our nation started. Do you need to interrupt? Then let's not, please, okay? All right, now we have Arkansas, which is way over here. Remember, we're going to law. Arkansas, Louisiana, Arkansas. Arkansas is the home of the first Walmart. Everybody knows about Walmart, but the first one was there in Arkansas. And then we have Tennessee here. Tennessee has more than 3,800 caves in that state.
Wow, that's a lot.
That's a lot, yes. Then we have North Carolina. North Carolina is a state where the Wright brothers flew the first successful powered flight.
At Kitty Hawk.
Kitty Hawk, North Carolina. And then South Carolina has the highest waterfall in the Eastern America. So that means on this coast, not on the west coast, but on this coast, the highest waterfall is in South Carolina. It is 411 feet. And Louisiana has the tallest Capitol building in the United States. It is 450 feet tall. And Mississippi, right here, which only has a little bit of it on the coast, but Mississippi is the catfish capital of the world. You guys know what catfish are?
There's a fish.
They actually have whiskers, just one whisker on each side of its face. That's why they call it catfish. And then Alabama, right beside it again, only a little bit of Alabama's on the coast. Alabama is the rocket capital of the world. Does anybody know why?
Because they launch most rockets there.
All right, well, there's a place in Huntsville, Alabama, where there is, you can actually do a space camp
Oh.
because they do that there. All right, and then we have Georgia, right beside Alabama. Georgia is the largest state east of the Mississippi River. It's also known for its peaches. You didn't say that. And then Florida. Florida attracts more visitors to their amusement parks in the Orlando area than any other amusement park destination in the United States. Because right here in the middle of the state, that's Orlando, where you go to Disney World and Universal Studios and SeaWorld. We have a lot of amusement parks in that area.
Hershey Park.
Hershey Park is not in Florida. That's in Pennsylvania.